Good evening and welcome to the Icecast Live. I'm here with Andrew Richmond. How you doing, Andy?
All right, bud. Nice to see you, Shane.
And nice you, mate. And you. Very good to see you. And I don't know about everybody else who's watching, but I've been following the saga of David Monteith in hospital. Yeah. And we were all a bit worried, but we're glad to say he is now at home. He had COVID, didn't he, Andy?
Yeah, and brought on pneumonia.
Yeah,
so
which is
pneumonia
nasty.
is the swine.
It is, yeah.
But on his updates, he's been telling us that he was on oxygen. Not good. People say, "Do you know anyone that's had COVID?" It's like we do now, quite a lot.
Yeah,
quite a lot.
Well, we all love Dave, we love Dave very much.
He's been at all the shows.
Yeah.
For many, many years.
Yes, indeed. Him and Barry from the Geek Syndicate guys. Big shout out to Geek Syndicate. They were a big inspiration, actually, to me when I was thinking about doing podcasts and all this sort of stuff. I mean, they were doing it, and they were doing it right long before, I even thought.
I mean, they've hosted things at ICE and all manner of.
They have
panels and goodness knows what.
Brilliant guys.
But I think it also, Dave said that his voice has gone because of all the oxygen. And obviously he's a performer of
he's an actor. He is an actor. Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know what oxygen does. Does it make your voice squeaky?
Who knows? I mean, it's obviously
like helium,
Yeah, well, you're not having the mix of air, are you? It's just pure oxygen going in.
Yeah. So it must. I guess it squeezes the throat a little bit. There's a balance of different gases in the air, isn't there? And oxygen.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, we're obviously not qualified to talk about respiratory problems.
No, we're not.
There's all manner of stuff in the air.
All
carbon
sorts of
something or other. Carbon monoxide. That's the
carbon dioxide more so, mate. But so best wishes to Dave. We're glad you're home, mate. And hope you're feeling well. Yeah. But tonight we are doing something a little bit different than talking about Dave. We are talking about another Dave and a Tim and a John. We have three great guests from Soaring Penguin, and we're going to be talking about the new Meanwhile collected edition. Which looks really, really nice. It is a edition of the last 9 issues, is it, or something like that? We'll have to ask the guys, won't we? I
think the 10th one is imminent, but it's interesting tonight because all three guys have had very interesting careers. David Hine is, a very well-respected artist and writer, as is Tim. John, I mean, we've seen John at the cons for the last... How many were you saying? He said probably says 10 years.
I think he's been around a bit long. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I remember John from way back in the day.
When he had short trousers on.
So, okay, we won't go on any longer. We'll run the VT, Sam, and we'll talk to the guys momentarily. And welcome to the Icecast, guys. How you doing?
Hello. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome, John. You're welcome, very welcome. So last week we attempted this, and it didn't quite work.
Whatever. Tim did something or other, or someone or other.
Blame Tim. Yeah, let's blame Tim.
Why not? Go on. Unfortunately, not. It was Gremlin.
50 pence in the meter still.
But we are here this week, so I'm very glad to welcome Tim Pilcher, John Adnderson, and David Hine to the Icecast. And we're going to be talking about, primarily, the new collected edition of Meanwhile. I wasn't sure of how many books are collected in there, John. How many do you get in this new collected edition?
It's the first 4 issues of Meanwhile. Cool. Meanwhile, 1, 2, 3, 4. When we were, they were 52-page issues. So it's going to be about 220 pages all in. Wow. With a new original cover by Sally Jane Thompson. She's been wonderful. We've just received the final version today, so I haven't had a chance to get that to you. But it's gorgeous. It's monochrome. It's a lot of fun, and it really matches the ethos and the spirit of Meanwhile, where anything can happen.
I'm a big fan of Sally Jane's, actually. Yeah. She's been around the scene for a while, producing some really nice work. And you've worked with a lot of really cool artists and writers over the years, haven't you, John? I mean, Gary Spencer Millage, Fraser Irving, Martin Simpson, and someone else I'm also a fan of, Carla Berrocal. Is that how you say it? Berrocal?
I don't honestly know. She's never told me how to pronounce her last name, but yeah, her work is lovely. I was really pleased to be allowed to run that story, The Straight Path, I think it was, in whichever issue of Meanwhile it came through. Yeah.
And going back, I mean, I was looking at the history of Soaring Penguin online, and there's a few sort of differing accounts on there. So it says that you started in 2009. But I've got Comics Forum here, which you published in 2003. So when did Soaring Penguin actually come to life?
Soaring Penguin actually started in 1997. What it was is that when I first arrived in Britain at the end of 1992, I was part of as attending various events through the Comics Creators Guild, and there was UCAC going on at the time, and there were a lot of there was just so many amazing creators, so much terrific stuff going on, but their opportunity to have their story in an anthology or someplace that they could show to editors seemed to be not a lot available. So I thought, well, I'll put together an anthology, and I'll grab all these guys who are doing such terrific stuff and put it all in an issue, so they can show the issue that they're in to an editor, because we had a lot of editors coming over from Marvel and from DC at that time, and they could say, here's my story, and you can look at the rest of the anthology because it's really good too. So we did through the first issue of Meanwhile with a Adnderson cover, came through David Morris's Crow Comics.
All right, yeah, I remember that.
And then after that, we applied for an Arts Council grant, and we got it to do the next 3 issues. But David was, I wouldn't say he was unsupportive, but just the things he was doing was going a different direction. And so we thought, well, we'll do it ourselves. So we created, when I say we, I mean myself and Will Morgan, the former Howard Stang group. He and I put together Soaring Penguin specifically to do the next 3 issues of Meanwhile.
And that was the whole purpose of it. I remember it being in the news. I remember the news coverage, because back then, lottery grants for comic creators was something that didn't really happen. And I think you were the first guy I remember actually successfully getting some money, some funding to produce some comics. So it was quite a big news story at the time.
I had no idea. I attribute that entirely to Will Morgan. His ability to write grant applications is spectacular. And so he was able to put together something that sounded professional and profound, and obviously it hit all the right notes, and they gave us enough money to do 3 more issues. So we did issue 2, which was the Mark Buckingham cover, and issue 3, which was the John McCrae cover. And then there was a bit of a lull, because I was finding that trying to get the 4th issue, trying to get the material together, in part because I was relying a lot on the good graces of many of the creators who were saying, yeah, I've got a story, I'll pitch that in. And what I discovered was that I could print a 96-page book and charge 3 times as much for it, but it didn't cost me 3 times as much to produce. And I had enough money left over from the grant, so the 4th issue was 96 pages with a Gary Spencer Millage cover, a Strangehaven story in it, and a whole lot of other stuff. Again, Fraser Irving had provided a story, and a number of other a lot of other stuff in there that I really quite enjoyed. And I thought, oh, never again. And it was shortly after that, and I thought, well, I'm not sure about this entire publishing war, that oddly enough, Peter Normanton approached me about doing I approached him. We approached each other about doing From the Tomb. I may have got that slightly off, but it was one of these things where something else showed up just after that. And that issue of Comics Forum that you showed, I had started at one point, because I was part of the Comics Creators Guild, I took over publishing their magazine. So it was like I couldn't quite escape.
And what year was this?
Sorry?
Are we still in the 90s then, or is this early
90s, early 2000s,
yeah.
About 2002, 2003. And so, yeah, I did, I think, 25, 26 issues of Comics Forum. And then it was, it wasn't going quite the direction I would like. So I thought I'd step away from that for a bit, and admit that may have been the point at which I started doing From the Tomb with Peter Normanton, and from there also started doing Spooky, the Warren fanzine.
Yes,
that was put together by Piers Casimir Mrzowski, who
of course I've got those.
Yes, absolutely, yes, where he approached every Warren creator he possibly could and asked them questions. He even has a brief 6-question interview with Will Eisner in one of those issues. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just so yeah, he did an awful lot of that, and I think around 2010 I thought, if I'm going to call myself a publisher, I've got to do this properly. So at that point I started doing a lot more outreach rather than sort of passively waiting for a book to arrive, and that's when we picked up Undertow, the hardcover edition of Ellen Lindner's graphic novel. We did that, and I think that did pretty well. And I was still publishing poetry at the time. I published The Jam Trap by Chrissy Williams, Mrs. Kieran Gillen.
Wow, I didn't know you were publishing poetry.
We published poetry at the time.
Wow, is that under Soaring Penguin, or is it another
Soaring
imprint?
Penguin, absolutely.
Wow.
We did several volumes of poetry. We did some terrific stuff. That never really rises above the parapet. I mean, poetry is there's a lot of poetry publishers, a lot of poetry self-publishers, and after a while, I thought, well, it's not really the direction I want to go. I really like comics, and I want to continue with comics, and so we did a lot of. We were doing some foreign language stuff as well, and that would be around 2013. We purchased the English language rights to do Régis Loisel's Peter Pan.
Right, yes, I remember that.
Which I thought, for a number of different reasons, that would be a good idea. I mean, it was a big, chunky, 360-page hardcover graphic novel. It set us out as wanting to do books. You know, we were serious about it. We were serious enough to actually get a contract and do that, and do the translation and put it all out. And it did reasonably well. And I figured Peter Pan, it wasn't. I didn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting. People knew who Peter Pan was. Yeah. So I could just say, "Oh, Peter Pan!" People, "Oh, fabulous Peter Pan!" And then if they really liked something soft and fluffy and Disney-esque, they would be startled.
Yeah, they'd have a bit of a shock.
That was an absolute classic book.
It is, and that's the thing, is I just absolutely loved it. It's sumptuous. It's such gorgeous artwork by Loisel, and it just goes and goes and goes. It becomes progressively darker as the story goes. To get to the end where, in the sixth volume, it was originally a 6-volume bande dessinée, and we did the whole thing as one big chunky book. It took Loisel 14 years to do this. I mean, he was working on other things at the same time, but 14 years to complete this story. And yeah, a big commitment, absolutely. But he was with Glénat, and apparently he's mates with Jacques Glénat. So he had a lot of support. He knew it was going to be published. It wasn't an issue in that sense. He knew that it would come out, so it was just simply a matter of him finishing it. But yeah, the sixth volume, there are things going on when you get toward the end of it. You go, oh God, don't go down, don't. to a comic book, which is exactly what you want, a visceral response. If people respond to a comic book viscerally, then it's done its job. I mean, isn't that right, David?
All I'm thinking is we're going to have to, that little clip then when you were reacting, John, I think we should do that as the sort of promo clip for this episode, definitely. So when did Tim become part of Soaring Penguin then?
I was a Johnny come lately. It's only been about 3 years now, I think it is.
Yeah.
But it's funny, it's what you were talking about. I mean, I'd always been aware of John in the industry, and just being one of those stalwarts that was always around, and kind of vaguely one eye on what was going on and everything, but not 100%. And I think it was the Loisel book that kind of made me kind of go, ooh. And I remember backing that on Indiegogo, funnily enough. And getting the book of that and just thinking, oh, this is great, and going, yeah, he's doing some really good, interesting stuff here. But it wasn't until about 3 years ago when John was planning to move back to Canada that he wanted someone to be kind of still based in the UK to obviously maintain that side of things, that we kind of started talking about working together, really. So yes, I'm very late to the game, but I mean, it's interesting. It's funny because a lot of the people that John was already working with, I'd either known or really loved their work as well. So it was a very easy fit. So it was kind of like, we knew the same people, and Comics World is fairly small or whatever. So it just felt very natural. And it felt like, this is the kind of stuff that John was publishing was the kind of stuff I'd like to publish. And that's why we got together, really.
And when I read about you guys teaming up, I remember thinking, oh, that's a really good matchup. It seemed to be a natural thing, because you were at Humanoids before Soaring Penguin, weren't you, Tim? And there was some great stuff coming out from those guys as well. Actually, I remember. I used to see at the shows what a selection of books they had. But there is a similar sort of there's definitely a crossover in aesthetics, I think.
I think there is more so now than there was when I was there. Actually, it's quite interesting. As I was leaving, they started reaching out a lot more to the kind of stuff that we publish now. And that was a bit of a frustration for me when I was there, as I wanted to, push the boundaries a bit. And they were very much kind of quite, I wouldn't have said traditional. I mean, they did some amazing titles, obviously the Incal and Meta Barons and stuff. They did, but they was sort of quite stuck in a sci-fi groove, as it were, perhaps. And I it would be nicer to kind of diversify a little bit out, which they're doing now. And so all power to them that they're now doing that kind of thing. But the other frustrating thing I always had was working there was, part of my remit was to obviously find new talent and bring people to them. And very often, I'd bring stuff over and they'd look at it, and we'd have to get France to agree and to America to agree. And of course, it would never happen. It would be like, I just keep, pitching these stories and, big names and professional, established creators, things. And we go through this whole process, and it was very frustrating. So to then, come to Soaring Penguin, and it's just me and John, and we could just hash it out between us. And we have a great argument, which is like, we both have to like something. So it's not like there's a huge committee to appeal to or anything like that. It's if we both agree that a title has got some validity to it, and we think it's got an audience and it's great and it's got a story to tell that's worth telling, then if we both agree on that, then great, we publish it. And if we don't, even if one of us really loves it, then we agree that, okay, then we both have to be behind it. And I think that works well.
That must be hard to stick to sometimes if you're really passionate about something and the other one is like, nah, it's not for me. Did you struggle with that sometimes, or you just accept it?
No, I just go ahead and publish it anyway.
No, I think the interesting thing is that actually we've been really fortunate in the last couple of years. Actually, the amount of submissions we get, that I don't want to try and sound but it's been really lovely to see the quality of submissions coming through. That it means that there are we can agree on a lot of things, and increasingly so. It's getting to the point where we actually go, we can't publish all of these things that we'd like to publish because there's just too much stuff coming through, and that's great for the industry as a whole and great for creators. But it's a little frustrating in the sense that yes, we'd love to publish a lot more, but there's practicalities involved, obviously. But no, I mean, I think it's even if you pick and choose your battles, and if you think, well, look, John's not really getting in on this one, there'll be something else that we both really enjoy that will come up, and then we can do that one, and that's fine. So it's a lot easier than having to please like about 15 different people in three markets. In that respect.
Yeah, that must be really tricky if you've got a lot of people to get through before you can publish something.
It used to be I could do if I read one submission a day, I could keep on top of it. But now it's that's not good enough. I read 3 and I'm still falling behind. And there are people I know I've got to get back to for various reasons and just see what I can do. But yes, absolutely. We've been. I think what it is as well is that having Tim on board meant that we've Soaring Penguin Press has moved up to that next level where we're considerably more visible. And as a result, we're getting more submissions and more people coming to us. And we're being able, we can pick and choose a lot more because we have a lot more to pick and choose from. It's not like, we've got to put out something because we haven't done anything in 6 months. It's we've got this, we've got this, we've got this, and we can continue to move forward. A case in point was The Glass Wall, just sort of appeared at the table at I think Thought Bubble. It just. They said, we've got this graphic novel. Would you be interested? Well, yes. And similarly, Breakthrough Initiative, Breakthrough Our Time that Tim edited and put together was something that Tim was instrumental in organizing, but largely it was because he was visible and he had a high enough profile that the Lakes wanted him to do this book.
Yeah. So it all works out, but as John says as well, I think John's visibility as well. So I think the fact that we were both have been stalwarts, for want of a better word, in the industry for a long time has given us that ability to be able to talk to lots of different people, like David. We've known each other. God, since the 90s, which is kind of I know. God, maybe the late 80s even, so it's scary. Yeah.
You've been working with Soaring Penguin a little while now, though, haven't you, David?
Well, John asked me to do something for the very first issue, which is how many years ago now?
2015.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. Sorry, mate.
I instantly wanted to do something with Mark Stafford because we'd already done The Man Who Laughs for Self-Made Hero, which did really, really well. And we'd pitched Lip Hook, but we were kind of waiting for the go-ahead on Lip Hook, and we didn't really want to get into it until we knew for sure that it was going to be published. So when John came on, we kind of went, okay, let's do something else in the meantime, and so we did. I mean, we kind of did Lip Hook and The Bad Place almost in parallel, and we kind of see it as mirror image stories because they've got a lot in common, similar kind of style. But the point is, with there you go, The Bad Place.
It's great, that is.
So bad we named it twice.
Yeah, 2 bads.
And the thing was, John wanted something for a quarterly anthology, which meant there was going to be at least 3 months in between each episode. So the challenge was to make every episode a kind of standalone. So it's a little bit like the way you produce stuff on TV. An episode should feel like a satisfying piece of story, but also leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger so you can come back to the next one. So I really enjoyed that challenge of actually making each chapter work on its own. And I also think it makes a good graphic novel in its entirety. I think it runs to. We went a little over. There were a couple of episodes where we begged for a couple of extra pages, which John was very pleased. One time he said, "Please don't do any more extra pages." I think, we really needed a couple of extra. I think in the last episode, we had finished it, and it just felt there was one little element missing, and I'm not quite sure. Of course, that episode hasn't come out in the monthly comic yet.
Right. So no spoilers.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. But it was, a huge amount of fun. I think it's kind of horrible, but I also think it was a really amusing story. if you got sick humor.
Yeah. I do like a bit of sick humor, and I'm a big fan of Mark's work.
He's an absolute genius.
He really is. I mean, I think he's completely underrated. I don't think he gets enough accolades. I mean, I think I first encountered his work somewhere around 1998, something like that, and he was doing a little self-published thing, and it was already leagues ahead of most of the other stuff I'd encountered at that point.
Well, he used to rock up at Caption, didn't he?
Yes,
he was always at Caption with his folio.
Yeah.
Gosh, when was that? Early 90s, 93?
I remember him bringing his self-published stuff into Comic Showcase. So that must have been about 91, 92.
Yeah.
When I was first seeing his self-published bits. Yeah.
The thing is, when you say underrated, a lot of people do say he's underrated. I'd argue that most people do rate him very highly. The people that don't give him enough recognition are mainstream publishers, because I think he's working for 2000 AD, for instance. And I'm going to say it again here because I've been kind of pitching his name for a long time. I know it's not, you wouldn't necessarily think 2000 AD Mark Stafford, but honestly, the way 2000 AD is going these days, it's diversifying in style.
In the history of 2000 AD, with Hooligan's haircut and all manner of, DR and Quinch, for goodness sakes, just absolute bonkers stuff.
There's always been an element of sci-fi. Yeah, there's always been an element.
Targ.
Yes, I hope you're listening, Targ. But yeah, I think it would be a great fit to see you and Mark doing something in 2000. But obviously, we don't want to take you away from Soaring Penguin as well.
No, we still have to do more.
Yes, I think we're quite prolific. We could work for everybody. We did just offer us the work. No, we did a short story for Heavy Metal recently as well. That was a 10-page as well. So that was great. That was another kind of sick humor horror genre thing.
There's a pattern emerging. There's a pattern emerging.
But Mark's been very fortunate in being able to work with both yourself and Brian as well. Great writer artists.
With
Cherubs.
That was Mark's big breakthrough, because really that was the first long form story that we've done. Although it was in black and white, so people didn't get to see it.
This is just some inside bits of Bad Place, just showing kind of like how lovely his work is, really. And rude words.
So who published that one?
We did. So that's Soaring Penguin. So we should probably explain a little bit about kind of the history and everything. So John, do you want to do that? Or
well, what it was is that when we restarted in 2015, I relaunched. Meanwhile, it was as a result of a conversation I had with Gareth Spencer Millage about finishing Strangehaven and how would he do it. And he initially said, well, if you can give me like a chunk of change, you give me £25,000 and I'll finish Strangehaven. I think it said, finish Strangehaven. And I said, well, I don't have 25,000. But then it occurred to me, if I revive the anthology, then he could anthologize it. And as it happens, it was kind of the way, because he originally planned it, set the whole thing out, to continue the way it had gone for the first 16 issues in Strangehaven. So that it was trivial. It was already done as an anthology series. So for him to do to continue it in an anthology it meant that I could provide him with the money to do each episode without it being so onerous that he couldn't do the other things that he needs to. He does a lot of other work to bring in money to pay the bills, so he could continue to put out Strangehaven and do the other things as well. And it just seemed like a perfect fit. But in putting that together, I thought, well, I need a second series because I don't want everything to rest on the shoulders of Gary's work. And at that point, I'm a big fan of David Hine, having seen read Strange Embrace, and big fan of Mark Stafford over a number of years. And I'd seen The Man Who Laughs. I thought, let's see what else they have. And fortunately, David was able to come up with A Bad Place, and Mark was available, and away we went. So we had two really, really strong ongoing stories going on at the same time in Meanwhile, and I could work everything else around it. What it did do, though, is it meant that Gary felt obliged to go to color, where previously it was black and white. And he curses me from time to time, but he needs to get over it.
Then because Gary works in quite a sort of laborious way, doesn't he? It's like there's a lot of time spent on those pages, so I imagine having to do color as well, he probably just thought to himself, oh god, these pages are going to take me even longer.
He emailed me at one point and he said he's managed to work out the most difficult way to color a comic page. And that's what he's applying.
He doesn't like to do anything easy. We've got a question here, and it's quite a big one. So I'll read it out from Barry Renshaw. Hi, Barry. Barry. Hi, gents. Great to see you all. Hope to see you in person at cons soon. 2 questions. There's a great book to be written about the history of UK comic anthologies at some point. What lesser-known anthologies, indie, small press, or mainstream, should be better known? Second, David shared a story from Crisis earlier today about the Tiananmen Square massacre. Would any of you like to see something like a modern-day, overtly political comics anthology from a publisher? Looking forward to picking... He ran out of space. I'm presuming he's looking forward to picking up the new book.
I think he's looking forward to picking up everything that Soaring Penguin publishes.
Yeah. So, first question. What was the... I'm going to have to put it on the screen again.
The first question is indie, small press, alternative comics anthologies.
Yes.
Should be better known. But do you mean, like, I don't know whether he means ones that are going right now or ones that...
I guess in general.
Yeah.
Feel
free to elaborate, Barry.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Fact or Fiction.
I remember. You see, all the fast fiction stuff that was done back in the day that Paul Gravett and Ed Pinsett were doing. That was a melting pot of amazing talents that came out from there. A lot of your contemporaries, David.
That led into Escape, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was a fantastic magazine.
Absolutely.
I mean, anthologies are a very British thing, aren't they? We've had some amazing ones over the years. You know, I'm not exclusively British. I can see.
No, but it's interesting. I was going to say, because when you look at the early American superhero comics, things like Action and things, they were anthologies.
That's
true. And they had backup strips in them and things like that. But you're right. I think the British and the Europeans do anthologies, or I say the British and the Francophone kind of countries do anthologies probably better than anybody else. Certainly, things like Spirou for the kids and Beano in the UK. Those, when you think about them, they're all anthology titles. So all those kids comics we grew up with, whether it's Crazy or Beano or Dandy or 2000 AD or Battle, or They're all anthologies.
Even the licensed stuff. I mean, I used to get, Star Wars comic that had usually 3 stories in it at least.
Yeah,
all the Marvel UK. Yeah, it was all. I think because UK readers are used to that. If they'd have just done straight reprints of the books, they'd have probably still sold. But I think that, and obviously it's cheaper as well, isn't it? I suppose to reprint some old stuff in the back as well as.
I mean, they do that now, don't you? Like Panini and whatever. The current crop of sort of reprint American comics, they just do solid chunks of stories. Whereas I think it managed to sort of stretch it all out in Star Wars Weekly. You could take an American comic and put it over 2 months. I mean, Planet of the Apes, the black and white.
It'd be 4 pages, wouldn't they? The lead story, 4 or 5 pages, and that'd be it.
And they'd get someone else to redraw the splash page.
That's it, yeah. There were some artists who actually made a living out of that, weren't there? Drawing the extra stuff, and covers and things like that. They'd actually, that was their thing. And I know that some of the UK artists who are now, legends, for want of a better word, they started doing stuff like that in those anthologies.
But David, you've had a lot of experience of working on 2000 AD and Crisis and stuff, haven't you? So, I mean, what I find interesting is that you find that the people that come out of anthologies tend to have a much tighter and more intriguing sense of storytelling than perhaps people that are allowed 22 pages. Because I mean, I know it's an old thing because you've got 6 pages to tell a story at the tops, right?
Yeah. It's a whole other skill than doing an American style 20-pager or the way most European comics are produced. There are very few anthology titles, for instance, in France anymore, apart from like you say, Spirou, I think is still going, but Maître Hurlant, À Suivre, they've all gone. So most.
L'Echo de Savant.
Sorry?
L'Echo de Savant?
L'Echo de Savant, I think, is still going.
Right, okay.
But that's not entirely comics. It's a mix of articles. But, so most Europeans are used to having a 48-page big album-sized book, and they can really relax. But particularly the British anthologies, like 2000 AD, 6 pages. And you have to things happen so fast, and you have to be able to cut the dialogue to the bone. And it's a whole other skill. I kind of enjoy it as a challenge, but given the choice, I would go manga style. 600 pages. It's fascinating to me the different styles. I love manga. I love British comics. I love American comics. And they all work in different ways. And I've been lucky because I've been able to, move across those different things. We even did, I did do a manga style thing for Tokyo Pop, which I think ran to over 200 pages. Unfortunately, that was going to be a trilogy. Only the first was printed. The second came out as a digital comic. And ended on a cliffhanger, and the third never happened because Tokyo Pop got basically imploded.
Somebody have a cat?
Someone's got a cat.
Well, was that mine?
That's mine. Not me.
It's David's cat.
It's an extra guest for That's great.
It's scruffy. He gets a bit funny some night. The thing is, he's deaf as a post, so he has no idea that he's kind of meowing at that volume.
He's got to make a guest appearance in your next story somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. So
I wanted to say that there's a lot of that you were talking about it being uniquely UK, but I have to say there are a lot of other foreign language anthologies going on out there, and I wish I could remember any of the names. But to be honest, a lot of the stuff. I mean, not a lot of the stuff, but I'm always trolling through other anthologies trying to find stories for Meanwhile. So I'm looking at Portuguese. I'm looking at French. in English as well. There is an anthology title out of South Africa, and there's one in Australia that I've been working my way through regularly, because these are, again, terrific stories in the same sort of storytelling medium that the indie alternative comic anthologies are in the UK, but they've never been seen in the UK because they're just too far away, and you've got no foothold in that sense.
Yeah, there's a great Swedish one that I don't think is running anymore called C'est Bon. And that had some really excellent creators in there. And again, people you probably wouldn't get to see in the UK, but the magazine was actually published in English. And it was designed for an international audience, but I don't know how big an audience it actually got outside of Sweden. But it was really good quality work, and it's interesting to see. As John says, we look at, there's a school that, funnily enough, David's taught at in Viborg in Denmark, and we've published students that have come out of there. In meanwhile, and we try and keep that connection up, and we're looking all around the world for people, and part of what Meanwhile's remit is to give a voice to professionals who are established, who'd like to do something that they can't do elsewhere, but also as a kind of foot in the door or a leg up to new creators as well. And that's very much part of that Meanwhile's remit, is to act as that kind of launch pad for creativity as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the graphic storytelling course in Viborg is absolutely amazing. Yeah. They have a new intake of students every 2 years. So every 2 years, 20 new students come in, and they are so good, really, really talented. Yeah. And it's a unique course. It runs for 4 years, and all of the teachers are visiting professionals. So I've been at Ed Hillier's talk there. They have people from Canada, the States.
Teddy Christensen's there.
And do they teach the whole spectrum of comic creation?
Absolutely.
Right from the creative side to the publishing to the sort of the marketing side? Because obviously, to be a self-publisher, you need also to be an excellent marketeer, don't you?
They do everything. And one of the most interesting things they do quite early on in the course, they break the students up into groups of 4, and they produce an anthology. It's 24 pages, 4 strips of 6 pages on a theme. And what they do is, one of them writes the story, and then they swap around. One does pencils, one does inks, and the other does lettering and design, I think. So they get to play each of the roles. So they learn how to collaborate, but from every point of view. So it's a very good course.
That's a really good education in comics, that is, because
it's amazing,
so many creators only know one facet of the process, and then they struggle for the rest of their career, because they can draw, but they can't sell, they can't letter. I mean, there's the amount of small indie books I see coming out where the artwork is beautiful and it's really nicely designed, but the lettering isn't good enough, and it just destroys the whole book. But they're completely unaware of that.
I always had a problem with the lettering.
I can't letter to save my life.
One of the other things that they do actually is that was what I was teaching my group recently, preparing a pitch. And at the end of that, I think it's 7 weeks. They haven't quite reached that point yet, but they will actually be pitching to real-life publishers, including Self-Made Heroes. So,
great!
And in fact, actually, that's one of the reasons I went out there, was just before the pandemic struck and everything in 2019, was representing Soaring Penguin, and we went out there so that they could then pitch to me as a publisher, and sort of like
so you did that, okay.
Yeah. So we went. I went out there and sort of told them about what we do as a company, and then said, okay, sell us your stories, basically. So it was
it makes sense, doesn't it?
And we're doing that again this year. On the, I think, the 15th of June, I'll be attending virtually, and they'll be pitching to me.
You're on that. the panel as well.
I'm on that panel as well. Yes, I'm going to do a video beforehand because they start like 9 in the morning, which is like 1 o'clock in the morning for me. It's like I don't want to do that, but they're gonna arrange so that it's a little later in the day for the people who want to see me, so that I'm dressed.
I should be there as well. Actually, I'm going to attend virtually, just as an onlooker, because.
I mean, I'm surprised more publishers don't forge relationships with colleges and universities in this way. Yeah. It's there's a fertile ground out there for incredible creators. And are there any UK like educational establishments that you have this sort of relationship with?
Well, I mean, we'd like to do more. I mean, we're talking. We've talked in the past. I think with Dundee. And Chris Murray up there. Yeah. So yes, we've certainly, are always looking out for those kind of new talents and nurturing that. I mean, part of what John mentioned earlier with the breakthrough anthology that we did was initially conceived through the Lakes Comics Arts Festival, but it was a challenge to go out and find people who wanted to do comics who'd never done comics before professionally. So they might have done them themselves or whatever, but they didn't know how to do it in a professional manner. So I came along as a kind of a mentor, and we had Dave Gibbons and Charlie Adlard come along and give them some tips and advice and everything, and got them to produce a comic that would fit in an anthology up to a professional standard that we then published. So, I think very much our ethos has always been about, helping find that new talent and helping nurture talent. And so whatever way we can do that, whether it's through certain schemes and projects like that, or whether it's talking to colleges and universities, that, we're more than happy to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's great. Before Sam has to go and feed his kids, we probably should look at some of the artwork. So first of all, we'll go through what the new book, that's the collected edition of 1 to 4. Okay. Meanwhile, Sam, if you can bring up some of the artwork and the guys can
we should probably explain the reasoning behind doing the collection. Well, it was interesting because when John first published it, it was a sort of magazine format, so it's saddle stitched and slightly larger. But as the page count went up, it had to go to a sort of prestige format, or a kind of with a spine.
Right. Yeah.
And it made more sense doing it on a slightly smaller scale. And so it kind of they don't quite match. If you're one of those kind of people that hates, kind of like collections and they don't all fit on your bookshelf exactly the same size, which I know there are a lot of people out there.
Oh, drives me insane.
Well, this is the chance for you to get the size so it will match all the others. So this collects 1 to 4, but then it will be the same size, height and trim size as 5 to 9. So it will fit nicely on your bookshelf.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, there's nothing worse than part of a series being like in floppy format and the rest of it being spine. It's like, drives me absolutely insane, because one goes in the box and one goes on the shelf, and my OCD just can't cope with that.
Well, again, that's why we did it for you.
So what are we looking at on the screen then, guys?
This is ink. This is ink by Trent Abel. It was a 4 or 5 page story that he offered up to me. It's incredibly visceral, and that's probably the only page of the entire story that you can actually show to the general public. The rest of them are not safe for work, not safe for the faint-hearted. But
they're not safe for home. They're not safe for anywhere.
Not safe for anywhere. But it's a wonderful satire of the lengths to which a corporation will go to continue to make a profit.
Right. That sounds interesting. I like And what we got here?
Now that's from the Meanwhile 10. What that is, that's Roger Langridge. We have a new series starting in Meanwhile 10 by the legend that is Roger Langridge, and it's about a New Zealand legend called Taniwa, and that will be ongoing starting from issue 10. So
that's
it's
lovely.
a departure from a lot. It is gorgeous, and it's a departure from the kind of artwork we're more accustomed to seeing from Roger. He wanted to do something that sort of fit in with the kind of Strange Haven, bad place sort of milieu, if you will. So he's doing something a little bit darker, a little bit more scary, but it's still sumptuous. It is gorgeous work.
It is really nice.
We should probably explain. So, there's two things that we're talking about here, because particularly this is coming up as well. So at the moment,
Sam's managed to pick the wrong file, hasn't he?
That's all right, because we've gone straight on to Meanwhile 10. So I'm going to
fast forward.
That's fine. But so should we explain? So at the moment there are 9 issues of Meanwhile out, but we wanted to. One of the reasons that we wanted to do the collection was on that thing, but we realized that there's amazing how many people hadn't actually heard of Meanwhile, and so we thought, okay, this is a chance to really create like a bumper pack and get it out into the book trade, because the book trade hadn't seen it quite as much as say the comics trade had, and so by doing a really nice big thick 220-page anthology, this you get a big meaty read, and it gives you a really good in-depth dive into everything that's been published in the first 4 issues. And
the advantage is as well, we can put an ISBN on it, which means it's going to be picked up by the bookstores as opposed to an ISSN, which is more ephemeral and
gives it a long shelf life as well, doesn't it?
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the rationale behind doing that. And as we discussed when I was last on the show with talking about the Glass Wall, this is also being crowdfunded. So we're crowdfunding this on Indiegogo, which has only until Sunday. You've got something like, I think, maybe less than 30 hours to go and back this. So if you go over to Indiegogo and look for the collected Meanwhile, just do a search in Indiegogo. You can back that and help support that and make that happen. So that's kind of running at the moment. And yeah, it's
and Tim,
also,
how much is the book? How much is the book, by the way?
Yeah, that's an important
book.
So at Indiegogo, what's the
good question. I think
£1.
Both publishers are
whatever.
Well, you know what? It's really interesting.
So many numbers.
Are we bidding now? Are we? I'll give you 20 quid.
Making offer. Sold.
Oh right, so you can just offer what you think it's worth. That's cool.
No, because the interesting thing is that as you know, with crowdfunding and things like that, there are different tiers and there's different things. So it's really a case of like, what do you want? So you could have like the PDF version for just £10, or you can get the printed one for £19, or you can get a book plate with which comes from Crent Abel's story that we just saw there for £24,
or from Gary Spencer Millage.
Or Gary Spencer Millage, and so there are lots of different tiers on that. So it's not just one price. It's kind of like whatever suits you, really.
Yeah. Keep going through the artwork, Sam. Let's have a look at a little bit more.
So that's the issue. That's the cover for the previous one was a cover for Meanwhile 1 by Gary Spencer Millage. This is Mark Stafford again. Meanwhile issue 2.
Keep going.
Issue 3. That's Ilya and Rainbow Buddy doing Sonnet 18. Bill Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. It was just absolutely gorgeous. When I saw this artwork, I thought, I want to see that as a cover, and it was lovely to have that in issue 3.
It's really nice. And these covers, these galleries, there is a cover gallery within the book, I presume.
Fundamentally, I'm going to take the covers and effectively run the 4 issues as they more or less appeared previously, so that you get the cover, then you get the interior, and yada yada. Because it's like less effort for me.
Well, it's a bound version.
It's effectively a bound version. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I mean, I thought about taking the covers out of them and rearranging things. I thought, no, let's make it the same. Let's try to reproduce the same sense of excitement as when the first 4 issues came out, where you got that when you went, "Ooh, this is really exciting! I'm looking forward to the next one." You've got that same sort of thing in a bound edition where you go, "Ooh, I really like that. I wonder what happens next." Well, I've got it right here.
And of course, the thing running through those is not only Strangehaven. There we go. That's the Indiegogo page there.
Right.
Now you know what to look for. So yes, so it's coming along. You've got about 36 hours to kind of like get in there and grab something quite spectacular. The interesting thing is in the first 4 issues, obviously you get the first 4 parts of The Bad Place, which runs all the way through everything that's been published in Meanwhile up to issue 9 and concludes in issue 10.
Yes.
Wow. So it will be for all of those people that have been loyally sticking with us since the very beginning. You'll get the final ending point of the Bad Place, unless of course you couldn't wait and you ended up buying the collected book, which came out at the end of 2019. Because it's nice to have a collected book as well. But
I love that cover as well. It's
brilliant.
What a great design! It's lovely. It really is.
Exactly. But so it means that we're now, once the collected Meanwhile finishes, which finishes on this Sunday, we're going to be launching the Kickstarter for Meanwhile 10.
Wow, straight in.
We're not messing around here, It's like we're not hanging about, so it's like, so we're absolutely going hell for leather, which will mean that we have a lot of subscribers, which is really lovely, and we love our subscribers. So they will be getting Meanwhile 10 at the same time as the Kickstarter people. So there won't be any preferable favorite, but it will mean that the people that are on Kickstarter and the subscribers will get it before it gets into the shop. So it'll be, they'll get their hands on it first. But it means that as David and Mark's story finishes, we've got Roger Langridge's starting. We've got Strangehaven, of course, and loads of other extra pieces. And we've got some really good sort of stretch goals actually lined up. I mean, I don't know if John, do you want to mention those?
Okay, well, initially, when we the goal is 3,000, we get to 3,500. We'll tip in a copy of either issue 2 or issue 3 of the original Meanwhile series. That issue 2 has the Mark Buckingham cover. Colored by Turmoil Color Studio, inked by Kev Sutherland, and colored by Turmoil Color Studios, which is John Higgins' crew. Issue 3 is the John McCrae cover and has a Carla Allison story in there, and the cover is colored by Hunt Emerson. When we get to 4,000, we get a 1-page story by Peter Hogan and Steve Parkhouse, the same guys that did Resident Alien. So we get a 1-page story from them, which is very exciting. And then if we hit 5,000, when we hit 5,000, we have an arrangement that we will be provided a 1-page story by Howard Chaykin.
Whoa!
Yeah, so that's very exciting. Very exciting. Lovely guy, lovely. So we've got that, but not only that. So we'll have the 128. It's 128 pages for Meanwhile 10. By the way, we've gone up again from 96.
That's a big book, isn't it?
That's a big chunky book. So I just wanted more space. So we've got 128 pages plus the Resident Alien. If we get to 5,000, plus the Resident Alien, plus the Howard Chaykin, plus another 6 pages of story that we've got put aside specifically for that. So. Wow. That's why we want to push for the stretch goal. Never mind the goal, stretch goal, because then you get something even bigger.
That's a really cool way of doing it. I mean, stretch goals sometimes they can be a little bit superfluous, can't they? But to actually have more content in there, I hate that word. Sorry, content. Sorry, I said that. But to actually get more story, that I think that's the way to go. With
this
stretch
is a
goals.
Conversation John and I had actually, which was as I think he put on there, which is like, an extra bookmark or some stickers is not going to make you buy the book. People are buying it because they want the book and not because of all these kind of extraneous bits and pieces. If you're buying an anthology like Meanwhile, you're in it for the story and you're in it for the meat of it. So that's really what we're focusing on with most of our sort of Kickstarter projects now. It's about the book first and foremost. So if we can make the book better and make the book nicer and put more content in, or maybe juice it up in some way, then that's more important than kind of like maybe having a few prints and a few extra bits and pieces. So Barry's in.
God love you, sir.
There you go. That was worth coming on, wasn't it? Just to get Barry to back in. He's a good lad.
We should go back to his question.
Your job is done.
He did have a second question, didn't he? What was
Yeah.
it? Oh, yeah.
Anthology.
About political.
This bit.
We would welcome a pitch from anyone about anything. As the ethos of Soaring Penguin Press is about storytelling. So if you can tell a good story that's overtly political, it doesn't have to be anthologized. It can be tell us the story you want to tell. Tell us how you want to tell it, and we'll take it from there. That's all we can,
Yeah.
We'll look at everything.
Before we move on to the last part of the show, with what David and Mark are doing, I got a little question with to do with pitching, and that is, what is it particularly that you don't want? What I mean, I as a publisher myself, there's a lot of stuff. I sent a lot of stuff as well, and so much of it is unsuitable. And we have, submission guidelines that people just quite happily ignore. So,
yes, exactly.
So what are the things that you find get ignored? That
Well, nothing gets ignored. Nothing. I read everything. It's just
no, I mean, what do the pitchers ignore? From your submission guidelines, what do they not take any notice of? Do you get a lot of pitches that are unsuitable because they've not read? Do you have submission guidelines?
We do have submission guidelines. We're willing to look at everything. What I really need is, I need a synopsis, I need an outline, I need the first several pages of script. Let me repeat: I need a synopsis, I need an outline, I need the first several pages of script. Or if it's done, give me the first several pages of the finished work, because what I get is, here's my 220-page graphic novel. And so I can't read all of this. I need you to approach me as if I don't have enough time to do everything.
Because you don't. Yeah.
Because I don't. Okay. And otherwise, so give me some insight. Give me that synopsis. And we get a lot of pitches from people who have never written a graphic novel, never written a comic book before, and again, they want this 25 volume, 60 pages per volume magnum opus. It's going to take them 30 years to complete. Baby steps.
Yeah.
You need to be able to tell story. Do something. Do something for the anthology. The anthology is always open. That's a point of meanwhile. Tell me a 5-page story. Learn how to tell story first, and then we can discuss the magnum opus, because I don't believe you can do it.
I think that's a sensible standpoint, with anybody who comes without any sort of record of what they can do. It doesn't matter who they are, really. It's, you're going to say, I don't believe you, aren't you? Because there's no evidence to the contrary. And that's not being mean. That's not being a gatekeeper. That's simply saying, I need a little bit more evidence that you can actually do this epic that you want to do. And, do a 3 or 4 6-page stories, and then maybe a 20-page story. And then maybe we, after that, you can talk.
I think a really other good point is coming it from a slightly different angle. It's like, know why are you telling this story?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, because very often people go like, I want to tell a big story about robots and aardvarks, and that will be great because I love robots and aardvarks. And then you kind of dig a little bit and you go like, well, what are you trying to say here? It's like, I just love robots and aardvarks.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing there. And you go like, we need something a bit more that has some substance. It has to be saying something of worth.
Exactly. And it has to be a comic. That was something that Woodrow Phoenix said at a Myriad thing, is that when he approaches the first graphic novel competition, every entry is the same thing. Does this have to be a comic? Is this a comic book, or is this a novel that they put pictures to?
That's
what
a good
is
point.
it about the story that is most suited to being sequential art, telling it this way and not some other way?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Thanks for that, guys. So before we end, because we've gone over the hour, but I promised David that we'd showcase some of the work in progress that he's doing with Mark. Sam, if you could share the work, and if David, you could just talk us through what the project is, please, mate.
Okay. One of the reasons that I wanted you to showcase this is to actually get me to get my finger out and write the damn thing. We've been planning this for, I was looking, a couple of years now, I think. we wanted to follow up with another graphic novel that's Self-Made Hero after The Man Who Laughs and then Lip Hook. And Mark has a bit of an obsession with the Island of Dr. Moreau by H.C. Wells.
He's not the only one.
It's an amazing book. So we have it started off with a very loose idea, with basically Mark drawing all the insane surreal imagery he could come up with. This is not going to be the Island of Dr. Moreau, but it is going to be the story of a guy who goes on a journey. And there he is as the lead character. And it's essentially an archipelago, because there's lots of islands and they connect. And I think of it almost like the Pilgrim's Progress. It's someone who is on a journey to find himself. And talking of themes, why do you want to tell this story? It's not just because we like islands and monsters. It's about finding his own nature and what defines a human being and separates them from the beasts.
Yeah.
And the plot is pretty much there, but I do need to sit down and really start solidly scripting it, because that's what we need to do to get two things in place, which is confirmation from Self-Made Hero that they will be publishing it, and we also want to apply for an Arts Council grant, because that made Lip Hook doable. It was fantastic. We were talking earlier about John being one of the first people to get Arts Council funding for graphic novels, and right now the Arts Council is backing a lot of graphic novels, because our theory is that the people who sit on the Arts Council and make the decisions are a whole new generation who've grown up with graphic novels, and that's more open to them.
It does seem that way. There does seem to be a lot more openness. I mean, I have a lot of discussions with the Arts Council for the events that I do. And I remember when I first started applying for grants, they didn't really seem to know much about comics. But I've sat down with a few of the guys, and they know their comics, and they're genuinely interested in comics, which is great,
Yeah. And as you can see from these drawings, I'm sure, I think these drawings alone are pretty much enough to sell this book. We're working on this. I always collaborate with Mark. I mean, it's not just a question of me. Amazing. It's not just a question of me writing a story and Mark illustrates it. He is constantly bombarding me with images. Saying, "Can we fit this in?"
That's what you want, isn't it? That's what you want from an artist, someone like that.
Yeah, it guides the direction of the story.
Yeah.
So,
mate, that's
a bad place.
That's a bad place.
Bad place. That is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Mark is the person that I've collaborated with most, and I think most successfully as well. I mean, I've had great collaborations with people like Fraser Irving and Shaky Kane and Doug Braithwaite. But there's something about the chemistry with Mark. It may be that we have spent so much time in pubs drinking together. It's just kind of put us on the same wavelength.
That's the secret. There you go. You heard it here first. The secret to success: spend lots of time in the pub drinking together. That'll do it.
We missed recently, and that's probably why I've been very, very lazy. I've been like most people, being locked in the house with all the time in the world to work on your projects, and you end up gazing out of the window and watching.
Yeah, it's incredible, that, isn't it? It's like when you've got no time and you're struggling, you push out the work and it keeps you on the edge, as it were. But when you've got all the time in the world, you do find yourself sometimes just not doing anything. And like that frustrates me. You're just surviving, aren't you?
But you have to. We were put in this situation that we weren't trained for. No one knew about this, about having to stay in your house for a year. What kind of hell is that?
Still, I mean, okay. To talk on a positive thing, then we're looking actively at going to be at new conventions. So I'm going to be at Meanwhile convention in September.
Very well named.
We had to be there, really.
It was named after you guys. I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
I am going to be talking to Simon actually next week. So
okay.
he's going to be coming on the show. Yeah.
So we're going to be there. We're going to be at Lakes and going back there, which will be great. And we're going to be at Thought Bubble, of course.
Yes.
Yeah,
cool.
So the three big conventions. So September, October, November. We'll have tables there. I'm really looking forward to kind of getting out there, and because it's funny in the lockdown period we've produced. I mean, by the time we get to the shows, I think we'll have something like about sort of 6 or 7 books out that we haven't actually been able to present to the public face to face. And so. It's
going to be a really interesting table, isn't it? With all new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people wouldn't have seen a lot of this stuff, so it's a chance to kind of go like, look, it's a whole new publishing list to people. So we're looking forward to that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But also, there's going to be creators that haven't met each other. Because the cons, we've not had a con now in 15 months or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
I know there's a lot of UK anthologies and stuff that's come up through Kickstarter, and we haven't met each other. Like Brawler, 77, Sentinel, all those guys.
Lords.
Scroll,
yeah.
Everyone's getting really excited about that, aren't they? The prospect of actually being able to meet up and in face to face and talk about what the work they've been doing, and it'll probably be this massive anticlimax. It's like, oh, that was a bit crap.
No, mate, it'll be fabulous.
I'm joking. Don't shoot.
Tell me all about it. I'm over here in Canada. We've got one convention, and it was cancelled.
Oh no!
Well, it wasn't. They did it online, which drinking by myself it's like every other weekend. So,
guys, just before we finish, I wanted to ask with the two meanwhiles, are the Kickstarter and Indiegogo being run simultaneously in Canada and the UK?
Well, the global platform. It's everywhere you want. Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean? Is because obviously, if you try and back a foreign Kickstarter, you get stiffed on the postage.
That's a good point, actually. Where's the shipping from?
Is it going to be UK?
UK shipping. UK shipping.
Yeah, that's all.
With all of our projects, they're all UK shipping.
That's the thing, because you see a cool book, and it's like in America.
Yeah. And the postage costs more than the book itself.
40 quid.
Yes. But the thing is postage the other direction. I could post a book from Canada to the States. It's cheaper for me to have it posted from the UK to the States.
No way!
It's just
that's ridiculous.
Even more expensive.
I ordered some business cards from an international business card company, and working out the prices, I could have them printed in Canada and posted to me, but it was slightly less expensive to have them printed in the UK and posted to me. It's like, okay.
There's something wrong there. There's something wrong there, isn't there?
Well, we know there's something wrong,
This is because of the Cold War between Canada and the USA, isn't it?
That must be it, yeah.
Blame Canada.
It's because they send them by Golden Eagle. They fly them individually across the border.
Sure.
They're really expensive because you have to train the eagles and do all of that. Incredibly expensive process. I haven't worked out a better way yet.
You're probably not wrong.
Well, guys,
anyway.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a really good chat. Good luck with all the projects. Good luck with the new Meanwhile issue, which looks great. Dave, hope you and Mark, get this finished.
Keep going.
keep going. If you need any more motivation, get down the pub.
we got to do it now. It's out there.
Yes, and you've said you're doing it now. It's on here forever. This is on YouTube. This is on YouTube forever. So you're beholden to that now, mate. So thank you ever so much, guys. It's been a really good chat.
Have we wished Tim happy birthday, by the way?
Oh yeah, Tim's birthday! Happy
21st birthday, mate.
Yes, mate.
Yes, I finished my drink now. It's
empty glass.
Empty glass.
We hope you had a good one, mate, and just go steady.
Are you popping out now, Tim, or are you going to stay in? You gotta pop out for an
No,
hour?
stay in, have another vodka martini. I think, you know, yeah. So, excellent.
Great stuff, guys. Well, we'll see you again soon. I'll probably see you at Meanwhile. I'm hoping to go, so we'll meet up and we'll have a real beer.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Sam. Can you run the VT, please? Good night.